All right, let's just dive right into this explainer today, because we're looking at something incredibly intense, the brutal psychological erosion of climbing every single rank in a Special Forces unit. And look, this isn't just your typical story about physical endurance or who can do the most push-ups. It's a fascinating, kind of terrifying journey, told exactly as you would experience it, from the absolute bottom of the food chain to the very top. We're going to do a deep dive into how an individual is systematically dismantled, piece by piece, and rebuilt to survive in a completely unforgiving world.
So think about this quote for a second. The harsh truth of this world is laid out right from the jump. This climb? It isn't just about earning a cool new title or pinning a badge on your chest. You are quite literally trading away pieces of yourself for survival, rank by rank. The cost isn't just paid in blood or sweat, though there's plenty of that. It's paid in the quiet surrender of the person you used to be. You're exchanging that old self for a version of you that can actually survive what's coming.
It starts in the mud, literally. You realize almost immediately that this journey doesn't kick off with some high-tech weapon in your hands or a fancy strategic briefing. No, it begins with a really profound, totally solitary choice, made when your lungs are absolutely burning, you're on your knees in the dirt, and every single part of your biology is screaming at you to just stop.
Rank 1. Recruit. The deliberate dismantling of who you used to be.
Okay, so at this stage, you aren't even really a soldier yet. The whole program is mathematically designed to completely and publicly break down the comfortable civilian version of you. They just want to see what's actually left standing once all your previous limits are totally shattered. First, you're running past the point where your body is literally begging you to quit. Then, you suffer through collective punishment. And this is brutal because one person's tiny, unnoticed shortcut costs the entire squad dearly, which builds this terrifying level of pure accountability. Finally, you're crawling through mud under live wire until quitting just feels rational. These engineered failures and endless nights, they're designed specifically to test how you carry yourself when you're breaking down in real time, with everybody watching.
But then, something absolutely incredible happens. You finish. And you finish without breaking, through some crazy combination of pure stubbornness and, well, something you probably can't even fully explain. You push through that mud. You actually stop flinching at the pain that would have totally paralyzed you months earlier. You discover that this cold, steady endurance is now the absolute most valuable thing you carry.
And then comes a day that feels exactly like any other grueling day. There's no dramatic ceremony. There's no parade, no marching band, not even a handshake. An officer just stands in front of you, ends one version of your life, and begins another entirely with one quiet sentence: you're ready for Rank 2.
Rank 2, Operator, the heavyweight of deployable trust.
Welcome to the true meaning of brotherhood in this violent world. You see an immediate shift in how you're treated, right? Because now you're officially part of something you can no longer quietly walk away from without lifelong consequences. You're not training anymore, you're deploying. And this brotherhood, it's not just grabbing a beer after work. It is the terrifying, incredibly heavy burden of trading your survival for the man next to you. You are trusting other men with your literal life, and you're feeling the immense gravity of being trusted with theirs in return.
The transformation here is night and day. That fearful, uncertain recruit running around at dawn, gone, completely replaced by a hardened operator. You come back from these real missions quieter. You come back harder. You're out there responding to real enemy movement with controlled violence, deploying against people who genuinely will not hesitate to stop you.
And you know, during these real-world operations, Command is always watching you quietly. They're basically assessing whether the intense stress pushes you toward fear or toward ambition. And the result? Ambition wins in you. Without any grand declaration or fanfare, ambition permanently replaces your fear. And honestly, that's exactly what Command was hoping to see for the next step up.
Which brings us to Rank 3, Squad Leader, managing lives in real time.
Leadership arrives way faster than you expected. And man, the burdens are staggering. Suddenly, it's not just about you anymore. You are answering completely for every single decision made under fire. You're delicately balancing and managing the trust and fear of your entire team. And perhaps the most brutal part of all this, you have to treat grief over fallen brothers as an unspoken weakness. You realize pretty quick that any vulnerability or unexpressed grief could cost your men everything.
So, the first real test of your leadership actually comes from inside your own squad. A guy you know really well quietly breaks protocol. He probably assumes you might let it slide since you're buddies, right? But you don't. You correct it decisively. You have to choose absolute discipline over their affection to maintain control. The lesson definitely lands, but it creates this new, undeniable distance between you and your men.
And this creeping isolation happens fast. It's like a timeline on fast forward. In a matter of hours, holding the perimeter line against an enemy costs you a trusted brother. For days, you bury that devastating loss silently because, like we said, grief is a luxury you just can't afford. And over the following months, because of your unblinking discipline in the face of that tragedy, Command secretly starts grooming you for even greater burdens.
Rank 4. Team Sergeant. The intoxicating danger of access.
Arriving at second in command, you inherit a deeply unsettling kind of danger. First off, you're being patiently watched by subordinates who are quietly just waiting for your spot to open up. Second, you are carrying highly sensitive intelligence that would genuinely cost lives if it ever leaked. And third, you're constantly, methodically shutting down these subtle little mutinies and tests of loyalty from other sergeants trying to see if you'll reach for power a bit too early.
Then comes the absolute defining moment of this rank. A coordinated, deliberate threat is made against your commander. It's real, it's planned, and it is entirely on you to handle it. And you do. You stop it. You secure the commander successfully at massive personal risk, shutting the threat down before it can fully materialize.
But the aftermath of that victory? It is chilling. Staring into the commander's eyes afterward, you realize a really uncomfortable truth. Gratitude and caution look almost identical when they're coming from a guy who's spent years commanding from the very top. Actually, scratch that. By saving him, you haven't just proven you're capable. You've unintentionally proven that you are the most capable, dangerous threat in his inner circle. You are now the next problem someone else will eventually have to deal with.
Rank 5. Commander. The illusion of absolute control.
So eventually, the old commander steps back, usually just through simple time served, and you inherit the top spot. But you discover, immediately, that your absolute control is nothing like peace. It is an incredibly lonely summit. You look out at the respectful nods of the officers beneath you, and you understand a terrifying truth. Silence is never actually peace. That deference you're seeing, it's merely the calm right before the inevitable betrayal. At this level, trust is a luxury you absolutely can no longer afford.
The timeline of a commander is basically just a countdown. You spend months making crucial calls that hold the entire unit together. You spend years forging these fragile, necessary alliances with old rivals just to keep your people from being worn down. But it all inevitably leads to a matter of days where a sudden quiet betrayal comes from deep, deep inside your own trusted inner circle.
The inevitable fall. The final reckoning of command.
The unit begins to unravel exactly the way every single elite unit before it has. It never falls from an outside invasion, it always falls from a fatal, quiet leak of intelligence. The structure just collapses inward. A trusted sergeant in your inner circle leaks intel to outsiders looking for a way out. Suddenly, old rivals, past orders, and forgotten promises all resurface at the exact same time. With the pressure totally closing in, you choose to hold the line using whatever authority you have left. And in doing so, you come to the stark realization that retirement, it's a complete myth in this world. Your ultimate fall is inescapable, you just become the end of one cycle and the exact reason another one begins.
Which brings us to the most impactful takeaway of this explainer. Knowing exactly what this climb systematically and permanently strips away from a person in exchange for survival. Knowing all the pieces of identity traded away, the heavy isolation, and that inevitable fall at the end, you have to look inward. Seriously, ask yourself this one final provocative question. Which rank would you have honestly stopped at?